Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of Business Basics. My name is Lee Iben. I'm the head coach here at Action Coach Campus. We're a business coaching team. And from time to time, usually once or twice a day anyway, I try to visit with local business owners. And it is my pleasure today to have the whole team here from Blank McCune, the real estate company. We got Tim Conroy, Alan Swanson, Leslie Fitzpatrick, and Terry, right? Terry Morrow, not Teresa, Terry. That's where we're going to go with that. Oh, perfect. So welcome. I'm glad you're all here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So let's start off here. What we try to talk about on Business Basics are, the successes that we've had in our businesses. We talk about some things that we can pass on, some tidbits and tips that we can pass on to other business owners. And we talk about, the 2020 year and how COVID really kind of came into play. And quite honestly, it hasn't been a bad year for a lot of people. We've had the health concern, we've had the lockdowns, I get all that, but some folks have done really well in 2020 despite COVID-19. How has it been on the real estate front? Go ahead, anybody, I don't care.
I guess I'll just start, but others can join in. It is, for us at Blank McCune, it has been a good year in terms of volume and clients and sales. So we're appreciative of that. I think it says something about the trust that the community has in our brokerage to kind of approach us during this unprecedented time. And I would say overall in the area, the market has remained strong and continues to do so despite the pandemic. And I'll initially start with that.
Well, and Tim, what we have noticed is especially within the trades, you couldn't buy a pool this year if you tried because everyone is going to focus back on the home, right? And I'm guessing, and you all correct me if I'm wrong, but it would seem to me that this was the year, especially people say, you know what, we need a bigger house. If we're going to be locked in, we need a bigger place. Terry, what do you think about that?
I would agree with that. I think the interesting thing about this year is we really saw an increase in all of the price ranges. It wasn't only, everything from the lower priced condos clear up to the $1 million+ houses. And I just find that just really interesting given the state of what's happening out there with the pandemic. So You're right. I think a lot of people did jump up. I do think also with the interest rates being historically low, you're seeing a lot of people that have historically leased moving into the housing market, which has been really good to see as well.
That's fantastic. And Alan, have we seen a pretty good inventory this year?
Yes, we've had a great time with Blank McCune. We've had things sell and there's plenty available out there, but they do go fast. There's such a demand, even though there's quite a bit coming up on the inventory all the time. Most houses don't last on the market very long if they're right priced. They go within a week very often. So that's been unusual, I think, during a COVID year as well. Even as difficult as things are, people are out there and they're competing very often for houses.
I would add that I was just going to say, I think that just, sort of in the same vein, you were talking about how a lot of times folks are looking for a little more space because they're spending so much time in their homes right now. In that same vein, I think one of the things that COVID has pushed so many people to do is to really look at what they're doing and if they're really living lives, as they want necessarily. And so we're seeing people who maybe thought down the road they would make a move, and now they're like, today's the day. Like there's no promises. Right. So we're definitely seeing some going for it type movement, just got to go for it. Right.
Does it have a home office? Does it have a high-speed internet?
Exactly.
There's also a big influx of people from outside the city coming here still. It's continued. And I think some people from the larger cities like to get away, and this is a great location to come to.
I completely agree with that. And, a couple of years ago, we were concerned that there might be too much inventory in the rental markets. Do you still see that, or what's your take on that?
Do you mind if I take that? I would say that there is still a lot of inventory on the rental market. And to me, that's the part of the market that has probably suffered really more than anything. And a lot of that is just not knowing and the movement toward being online at the university. And that just has such a dramatic effect on everything else. And so people were able to really kind of leave the city and not, and be in, you know, and continue to go to the university or do what they needed to do. And so couple that with the pretty dramatic rise in just the total number of units in general, I would say that that's probably the area in Iowa City that's probably suffered the most, has been the residential rental market.
Sure.
So, yeah.
So before COVID, you know, we start, you know, February, we're getting this feeling something's going to happen. What was your initial take on the pandemic? And then how did that change as you kind of progressed through it?
Tim, you should take that.
I'll try to crack that egg first. So, you know, I think we as agents were all pretty glued to the news and kind of how it was evolving, just like everyone was. But a lot of us have either loved ones or clients who work in the medical industry, since UIHC is such a big employer here. And so, you know, you're hearing that chatter and you're trying to be, you know, keeping an eye on the shifts that they are taking as kind of an indicator. And so I think we tried to keep up as best we could as information was coming in on how can we adjust, you know, a traditionally very hands-on, very like face-to-face experience to make clients, both buyers and sellers, feel safe. And a lot of that was educating ourselves on, you know, what the CDC is recommending right at the beginning, whereas, you know, perhaps some people were not doing those things. We always defaulted to a position of we need to follow the best recommendations that are coming from medical professionals. And so we really tried to adapt, pushing that way, waning down open houses to ultimately not doing open houses, making sure everyone was masked, hand sanitizing, and also encouraging our agents to get a little bit creative with how they're presenting their listings, because even with the pandemic and stuff, you still had sellers who wanted their homes to be seen, especially if they were vacant. Sometimes you have mentalities that are saying, you know, no one's there, so, you know, why not have an open house, or why not just open it up? And so we saw way more uptick of agents embracing video and virtual tours, and that's, you know, I'd say across the industry.
Terry, excuse me. So Terry, have you found then that, you know, I think before COVID-19, there was a hesitation on some people's parts to buy sight unseen. I mean, without actually going in and feeling the house, right? Have you seen now that COVID-19 that people are more open, like Tim said, to take a video word for it, so to speak, and say, yeah, that's the house for us, without actually visiting the location physically?
I know we've seen that on the rental side, and I would suspect we've seen it. You guys have seen it as well as I have on the buy side too. I mean, you like getting creative. I mean, you walk around with FaceTime, or you do whatever you need to do to make people comfortable with what they're seeing. And a lot of times there's just that trade-off. You know, maybe you don't get to touch it. But again, I think that goes back to trusting the agent that you have, and that they're going to have your best interests at heart. And our clients, I think, do put a lot of trust in us. So it was I think that makes it a little bit easier.
Right.
No, I had that experience this year. I mean, we had that where states weren't letting people leave. And so then they were forced to, because they knew they had to be here on a certain date. I mean, we absolutely had that on the buying side.
And I think
so Leslie, how go ahead, Tim.
Sorry to interrupt. I think Leslie, if I remember correctly, because we were, there was a point of the year where Leslie had a lot of buyers, and I had a couple of listings they were looking at, and Leslie would do a lot of preliminary showings at first with like a video or a FaceTime walkthrough. And then you know, if it struck the like initial chord, then you'd come back. I think that was one of Leslie's strategies that worked out really well.
Yeah.
And Leslie, how do you build that trust? If someone can't meet with you physically, how do you build that trust over an internet call or video? How do you do that?
I think that's a great question. It's an issue that I think people are contending with across many professions and relationships in general in our community right now. I think the most important thing is really for a person, whatever role they're in, to be their authentic self and to do what you say you're going to do. So being responsible and demonstrating the trustworthiness. I mean, I will tell you, if someone tells me they can trust me, that's my first concern, right? That we need to be able to show that. And I think they're just, all of us are with COVID have really had to learn how to trust our own instincts more and take leaps of faith and use our own best judgment, you know. And so, like Tim said, I mean, I did things like that, and to where, you know, we would do a lot of preliminary FaceTime showings before they came, whether they were in town or not. And frankly, I'm still offering that when I have a new client and I don't know what their boundaries are. This is something that we as agents at Blank McCune are trying to understand, pandemic or not. What's the best way that we can help you be comfortable? Do you want to have our first meeting at our office, over Zoom, at a coffee shop? You know, always trying to understand how to help our clients and the community be comfortable and then pivot. And so that's what realtors are really, really good at, is learning how to pivot. And so COVID gave us a whole new subset of skills to learn. And so we just have to lean into it and do our best. And that's going to be true whether we can be in front of someone or behind a screen.
So let's play off of that. Alan, what permanent changes are going to happen now after COVID-19? I mean, I had a nice chat with our friend Mark Ginsberg at MC Ginsberg's, and he said even after COVID-19, by appointment only, they're able to do that. So what changes do you see in the real estate field that might be a permanent change after COVID?
Well, I think there'll still be more, there will be more reliance on electronic data like right now, like this meeting, because it's easier and you can get more people together. There may be different people in a family who are in two different cities and they want each other to be in on the discussion, and that'll help. We've learned a lot during this that I think will help us. The basics of listening to people and doing the personal things and going the second mile, like we were saying, to get their trust, still has to be kind of interpersonal. And at some point you need to meet them, I guess, even if it's just a closing.
Right. Very good. Terry, in your name, it says classic. I love that. Can we explore that a little bit? When I work with clients, we talk about a USP, unique selling proposition, and you guys right at the top of your website and everything else I've seen says classic. Let's unpack that just a little bit.
I think classic goes back to the relationship that we have with our clients, as well as the level of trust, as well as the ethical behavior that we have always had, that has always been emblematic of Blank McCune. To me, that's what the classic means. Alan and Tim and Leslie, you may have a different idea of classic, but to me, that's what the classic means. Does anybody else want to jump in?
Alan really keyed, Alan was the torchbearer of that.
I thought it was a good way to keep what we had, which was wonderful, because the two ladies who started Blank McCune, whose last names are Blank McCune, had a great tradition of honesty and actually generations of helping people, which continues to today. A lot of referrals come from a mother and a husband to their kids, and we've actually had 3 generations now or more of people working with us. But it's that classic approach that Terry was talking about. So we kind of blended all the things. We actually referred to those 2 owners as classics in themselves. They set a path that was kind of on a higher road, I think. We like to think than is available from some other firms. But all the firms in Iowa City are very good. But we have a special kind of boutique way of going at it, where we give special attention to people. And they started that, and we've continued it, and we just thought it should be part of our name. And it's not actually part of the real name, but it is a tagline that we
Right.
use predominantly. And I think it does represent what we are.
And I like your expression, a boutique approach, because that says so much in that one word alone. So that's really special. Tim, you were going to say something?
And I think is like growing up around the Iowa City area, like Leslie and I both did, Blank and McCune kind of was a household name, and it has that classic staying power. I mean, it was founded in 1979. We just celebrated 40 years as an independent brokerage. You know, we're kind of an Iowa City area classic. I mean, I look at it as almost like a household name of like Johnson and Johnson. Not that's like a huge company, obviously, but you know, the staying power of that name of like Blank and McCune is just something that is just I think classic, encapsulates both the mentality we have towards the ethical behavior that agents are supposed to exhibit, and also just our company in general.
Fantastic. Fantastic. All right. So I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. So we're going to go around the screen here and give us a business takeaway. Give us a lesson that you've learned that you'd be able to pass on to somebody else. We'll pick on Alan first, and then we'll just kind of go around from there. So
it's tough to go first on this one.
Oh, it is. Like, you know, what horrible mistake have you made and learned from it? I was in corporate communications, and I had creative positions before with the University of Iowa Foundation, as Tim had said to you earlier, and I really loved it. But what I didn't realize was that in real estate, you have such an interpersonal chance to meet so many people, have so much variety in every day, and have such a chance to grow and be your own boss and mentor others. Everything that I like to do was in real estate. And I think if I made one mistake, it might've been waiting too long to start.
There you go. Thanks for that. That's good. All right. Leslie, go ahead.
It's one lesson that you've learned that's what you're asking for.
Well, you know, as a business owner, right, we sometimes fail forward. We say, well, I don't want to do that again. Or it's like a little bit of wisdom that has worked consistently well for you. Just anything you like that you can pass on to someone who might be getting into the world of real estate, all right, for the very first time, and you want to give them a piece of advice. What would that be? Okay.
Well, like my colleagues here and like many realtors, I also came from a different field prior. I actually still have a clinical license in social work. So that's my background. I love helping people. And that's absolutely what brings me the joy in this role. And really, most realtors are independent business people, whether they are owning the firm or whether they're running their own business within a firm. Right. And I think that in so many walks of life, but certainly when you're running your own business, understanding why you're doing what you're doing and ensuring that you really feel passion for what you're doing, and mainly for yourself, so that you get up every day and you get to feel so happy about what you're doing, but that will really connect you successfully with where you're going and then how you're going to carry that out. And so giving yourself the permission and encouragement to take the time to figure out those pieces. And so it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about being yourself, like knowing why you're doing what you're doing and really going for it.
If you haven't seen Simon Sinek's video, Know Your Why, I'll send you a copy. It's on YouTube. You can easily find it, but he speaks to that exactly. And once you identify your why, it just brings so much more clarity to everything else that you do.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Terry, we'll save you for last. Let's pick on Tim. Go ahead, Tim.
Well, I guess as someone real estate was my first jump as a career after college. So I would say going through that course as first a licensed or unlicensed assistant, to then a licensed assistant, to then being on a team with Alan, who was one of my mentors, and then ultimately becoming a partner of Blank McCune, it showed me you can spend, especially in real estate, with the world we're living of HGTV and all these kind of flashy things, you can spend a lot of money and a lot of hours going over marketing material and trying to put it out there. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to delivering a customer service experience. And that would be my advice to anyone getting into real estate right now is I didn't initially think of it as a customer service one-on-one experience where you're also play a lot of different roles helping people through there. But you have to be ultimately giving the best you can to every single client and keeping your word and doing it with integrity the whole way if you want the staying power. I think it's an industry that is really prone to flash in the pans, or you can easily get cocky and think you've made it and you're there, and forget that you rely on your sphere of influence and the community in general on those referrals. I mean, we all like our glitzy marketing piece and kind of that security blanket of saying, okay, I'm doing these things and we're seeing this amount of traffic come in and this much, but that really amounts to a hill of beans if you can't back it up with solid integrity and practice. So I would say in this day and age, what I have learned is to not undervalue that experience, especially in the COVID world now, where a lot of your interpersonal relationships and your acquisitions of clients are based on referrals and people cutting out the kind of, oh, maybe I'll interview 5 agents. They're going to somebody they trust to recommend somebody who they trust.
And Tim, you alluded to this, but you are all affiliated with Blank and McCune, but you are all each your own brand. And what you are always on, because you have to be a positive representation of the firm you represent and the person you represent as your own brand when you're at the grocery store. I mean, you're not going to wear your pajamas to Walmart because you might see a client there. I mean, I'm the same way. We all are who we are. And we have to remember that if we're going out to eat and our kids are misbehaving, someone's always watching. And how we impress that upon the members of our team is also important, because we all know of a certain situation recently that involved a realtor and things did not go well for that person. And because they forgot who they were. Yeah. And when that happens, it's bad. So we are always on, and that's just the way it is. Now more so now, I guess, now than before, right, Terry?
I agree. I'm going to go back to just maybe some things that have really been driven home to me specifically this year. And a lot of it has to do with how we need to communicate and how we can communicate, because we can't do so much face to face. And it's just really driven home the basics of really needing to listen to your clients, let them know that they're being heard and that you're listening to what they need. And if we do that, you're going to have a relationship and you're going to have transactions that work. If we assume we know what they want or we assume we know what they need, it doesn't work. And I think this past year, because our communications have been somewhat limited in how we can communicate with people, because I would say, the bulk of the communication in the past has been one-on-one, face-to-face, and we can't do that. It's really driven home again how important it is to listen to clients and understand what they need and make sure that they hear that, make sure that they know that we're listening. So
that is so true, Terry. And when we talk about real estate, people say, oh, sales. I don't want to go into sales. Well, what is sales? It is nothing more than professionally helping people to buy. right? Listen to what they need, what they want. And you're right. Don't assume anything, because you know what that's an acronym for, so we won't say that. But the thing is, we have to listen, right? 2 ears, 1 mouth, right, Terry?
Right. Right.
Well, thank you all very much. I've kept you almost a half an hour here. I apologize. We ran a little longer,
Oh,
but it has been great. So don't go away. Let me wrap this up. My special guest, of course, today was the team at Blank McCune, the classic team. And of course, Alan and Leslie, Terry and Tim, all here with me today. My name is Lee Iben with Action Coach Campus. Thank you all so much for joining me on Business Basics.
Thank you.
Thank you.